All right, welcome to Documents and Drafts, the podcast where we take a look at important historical documents, especially important to the United States, and drink some really cool beers along the way. We look at the background of each document and the background of the beer that we're drinking. We'll read the document and talk about the beers, maybe do a couple other things along the way. Plan is to do about one of these a month. Been averaging about one every 3 weeks, up to about 100 followers. Thank you. All the background music is provided by Soundstripe. I use the blues genre most often. Today, we have um, a couple of documents. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Okay. Okay, so welcome again to Documents and Drafts. We're going to use these two books, History of the United States and Documents from the Nation's Archives by Eric Brunn and Jay Crosby. We're going to use a different book than the 50 Core American Documents. It's called the American Revolution Core Documents, selected and introduced by Robert S. McDonald. Just one little piece out of here. We are going to get piece of a piece from Richard Henry Lee about George Washington, Thomas Jefferson's first inaugural address, Alexander Hamilton's hatred of Thomas Jefferson. We're going to drink some really cool beer from JAFB Worcester Brewing. I'm drinking their classic stout. It's really good. We're going to talk a little bit about the Fourth Amendment because of data centers, flock cameras, the FISA decision, the Patriot Act, and all that fun kind of stuff. If we have time, we might do some Supreme Court stuff. Again, the podcast is available on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Podcast Addict, YouTube, and other platforms. That's sometimes why there's a delay between the start of this and the start of that, because I'm trying to do two things at once, and I'm doing it all on my little laptop. I told you about the books used, pictures from Getty Images, SCOTUS info from SCOTUS blog, cover art is from a former student of mine, Emma Williams, and the YouTube help also from a former student of mine, Olivia Baldwin. All right. So here we go. Richard Henry Lee. Here, I like to see myself up in the corner while we're doing all this. Why doesn't it go smaller? There we go. So Richard Henry Lee is the first first document. It's called First in the Hearts of His Countrymen. And again, it comes from Our Nation's Archives, The History of the United States and Documents by Eric Brunn and Jay Crosby. We're drinking the classic stout from JFB Brewing in Worcester, Ohio. Very good. Probably pretty close to what they were drinking back then. All right, here we go. Here's the background. When Washington died in 1789, the United States lost a hero of national proportions. For 8 difficult years, Washington had led American forces in the Revolution in spite of constant military defeats, malnutrition, and discontent within the ranks, and being outnumbered by a larger, richer army. He restrained himself from the temptations of seizing personal power and exercising his standing to check military coups. As the first president, he set forth a standard of personal conduct and public policies that continued through the 20th century. General Henry Lee, who served with Washington and who's the father of Robert E. Lee, delivered his famous tribute at Washington's funeral, summing up Washington's record. Stories of Washington's honesty and courage soon became part of the American folklore. Although much of it was made up, the idea that Washington's represented served as a model for Americans to aspire. Okay, here's what he said. First in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. He was second to none in the humble and endearing scenes of private life, pious, just, humane, temperate, and sincere, uniform, dignified, and commanding. His example was as edifying to all around him as were the effect of that example to lasting. To his equals, he was condescending. To his inferiors, kind, and to the dear object of his affections, exemplary tender, correct throughout. Vice shuddered in his presence, and virtue always felt his fostering hand. The purity of his private character gave effulgence to his public virtues. His last scene comported with the whole tenor of his life. Although in extreme pain, not a sigh, not a groan escaped him, and with undisturbed serenity he closed his well-spent life. Such was the man America had lost. Such was the man for whom our nation mourns. Methinks I see his august image, and I hear falling from his venerable lips these deep sinking words. Cease, sons of America, lamenting our separation. Go on and confirm by your wisdom the fruits of our joint counsel, joint efforts, and common dangers. Reference religion, diffuse knowledge throughout your land. Patronize the arts and sciences. Let liberty and order be inseparable companions. Control party spirit, the bane of free government. Observe good faith to and cultivate peace with all nations. Shut up every avenue to foreign influence. Contract rather than extend national connection. Rely on yourselves only. Be Americans in thought, word, and deed. Thus will you give immortality to that union which was a constant object of my terrestrial labors. Thus will you preserve undisturbed to the latest posterity the felicity of the people to me most dear, and thus will you supply, if my happiness is now aught to you, the only vacancy in the round of pure bliss high heavens bestow. So that is Henry Lee, first in the hearts of his countrymen. So we're going to skip ahead here a little bit. If I can find what I'm looking for. I hate it when I do this. I can't find what I'm looking for. Shit. Where's the share screen? All right, here we go. So we're going to look at JAFG Brewing, FB Brewing in Worcester, Ohio. I am drinking their classic stout today. So here is We Are Worcester's hometown microbrewery and tap room, proudly serving fresh handcrafted beer. Open daily with plenty of window space. It's a place to enjoy good times. It is very cool. It's a neat little place. A great beer in the heart of Worcester. Our award-winning beers have earned wide recognition, making JFB a must for locals and visitors alike. All beers are brewed in our 7-barrel steam-heated brew house, where our 2 brewers produce roughly 30,000 gallons of delicious beer. Our tap room is open to the public daily and is affectionately known as Worcester's living room due to its friendly and welcoming atmosphere. We take pride in serving you excellent beer with top-notch customer service. It's been around since 2011. Like many college students, Paul Fryman discovered a deep appreciation for beer during his years at Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. But unlike most, he wasn't content simply enjoying it. After studying abroad in Germany where brewing is centuries-old craft, Paul returned inspired and devoted his senior thesis to exploring the impact of microbreweries on the American beer industry. With degree in hand and a clear path ahead, he set out to turn the passion into a profession, gaining experience at Great Divide Brewing in Denver, Great Adirondack Brewing in Lake Placid, and Snake River Brewing in Jackson Hole, while steadily refining his skills in brewing philosophy. Eventually called back east to serve as head brewer of Great Adirondack, Paul later returned home to Worcester in 2011, where he partners with his father Jerry and brother Tony to open JAFB Worcester Brewing in 2012. More than a decade later, JAFB has produced numerous award-winning beers and become a hometown staple, delivering the kind of thoughtfully crafted brews people of Worcester deserve. So here's their beers, and then we'll get back to the historical documents. This is currently what's on tap. Kemp's Kolsch, a light, easy drinking German style ale fermented. So a Berner Any Pale Ale, Raspberry Really Ale, Summer Forever NEPA, European style. So they got a Hefeweizen. Oh, they also have a La Nina NEPA. They have 90 feet to Vienna lager. I had that. It's really good. I have a red, I had that also. It's also really good. They have a barley wine, which did not try that. They have Colombian coffee porter, Worcester Classic Stout, which is what I'm drinking currently. It's excellent. So that's kind of their other thing. So that's kind of cool. All right. So let's go back to our screen sharing. All right. So now Thomas Jefferson. Okay. See how we're doing on time. Let go away. I want it to be paused. All right, Thomas Jefferson. Okay, here we go. Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address. Again, where are we time-wise? Okay, plenty of time. Here's the background. This is also from the book Our Nation's Archive, The History of the United States and Documents by Eric Brunn and Jay Crosby. Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address. This is a little bit longer than the last thing that we read, so I'm going to try to get comfortable here. Apologize for the hat, but it's hot out and I haven't done my hair. Thomas Jefferson's first inaugural address took place in the context of bitter partisanship. Jefferson, a Republican, had defeated the Federalist candidate Aaron Burr in a tight, heated election. Jefferson's victory marked the first time there was a transfer of political power and took place only a few years after the Alien and Sedition Act were directed at political opponents of the Federalists. Jefferson's assertion of the rights of the minority and his defense of the Bill of Rights, which had been placed in danger by the Alien and Sedition Act, set a precedent. With the exception of the Civil War, the transfer of power from one political party to another has never been questioned since Jefferson. There have been some election questions in the last couple of election cycles, but not power was still peacefully transferred. Here we go. Called upon to undertake the duties of the first executive office of our country, I avail myself of the presence of that portion of my fellow citizens, which is here assembled to express my grateful thanks for the favor which they have been pleased to look toward me, to declare a sincere consciousness that the task is above my talents, and that I approach it with those anxious and awful presentments which the greatness of the charge and the weakness of my power so justly inspire. A rising nation spread over wide and fruitful land, traversing all the seas with the rich production of their industry, engaged in commerce with the nations who feel power and forget right. Advancing rapidly to destinies beyond the reach of mortal eye. When I contemplate these transcendent objects and see the honor and happiness and hopes of this beloved country committed to the issues and the auspices of this day, I shrink from the contemplation and humble myself before the magnitude of the undertaking. Utterly, indeed, should I despair, did not the presence of many whom I here see remind me in the other high authorities provided by our Constitution shall find resources of wisdom, of virtue, and of zeal on which to rely under all difficulties. To you then, gentlemen, who are charged with the sovereign functions of legislation, and to those associated with you, look with encouragement from that guidance and support, which may enable us to steer with safety the vessel in which we are embarked amidst the conflicting elements of a troubled world. During the contest of opinion through which we have passed, animation of discussions and of exertions have sometimes worn the aspect which might impose on strangers, unused to think freely and to speak and to write what they think. But this being now decided by the voice of nations, announced according to the rules of the Constitution, all will, of course, arrange themselves under the will of the law and united in common effort for the common good. All, too, will bear in mind this sacred principle, as though the will of the majority is in all cases to prevail. That will, to be rightful, must be reasonable, that the minority possesses their equal rights, which equal laws must protect, and to violate would be oppression. Let us then, fellow citizens, unite with one heart and one mind. Let us restore to social intercourse that harmony and affection, without which liberty and even life itself are but dreary things. And let us reflect that having banished from our land the religious intolerance under which mankind so long bled and suffered, we have yet gained little. If we countenance a political intolerance, a despotic as despotic as wicked and as capable of bitter and bloody persecutions, during the thrones and convulsions of the ancient world, during the agonizing spasms of infuriated men, seeking through blood and slaughter his long lost liberty, it was not wonderful that the agitation of billows should reach even this distant and peaceful shore, that this should be more felt and feared by some and less by others, and should divide opinions as to measures of safety. But every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. We have called by different names brethren of the same principle. We are all Republicans. We are all Federalists. If there be any among us who wish to dissolve this union or to change its Republican form, let them stand undisturbed as moments of the safety for which error of opinion may be tolerated, where reason is left free to combat it. I know indeed that some honest men fear that a Republican government cannot be strong, and that this government is not strong enough. But would the honest patriot, in a full tide of successful experiment, abandon a government which has so far kept us free and firm? On the theoretic and visionary fear that the government, the world's best hope, may by possibility want energy to preserve itself. I trust not. I believe this, on the contrary, to the strongest government on earth. I believe it the only one where every man at the call of the law would fly to the standards of the law. It would meet invasion to the public order as his own personal concern. Sometimes it is said that man cannot be trusted with the government of himself. Can he then be trusted with the government of others? Lost my place. Oh, there we are. Or have we found angels in the form of kings to govern him? Let history answer this question. Let us then, with courage and confidence, pursue our own federal and republican principles. Our attachment to union and representative government, kindly separated by nature in a wide ocean from the exterminating havoc on one quarter of the globe, too high-minded to endure the degradation of others, possessing a chosen country with room enough for our descendants, to the thousandth and thousandth generation, entertaining a due sense of our equal rights to use our own facilities, to the acquisition of our own industry, to honor and confidence from our fellow citizens, resulting not from birth, but from our actions and their sense of them, enlightened by a benign religion, professed indeed and practiced in various forms, yet all of them in calculating honesty, truth, temperance, gratitude, and the love of man, acknowledging and adorning and overruling providence by which all its dispensations proves that it delights in the happiness of man here and his greater happiness hereafter. With all these blessings, what more is necessary to make us a happy and prosperous people? Still one thing more, fellow citizens, a wise and frugal government, which shall restrain men from injuring one another, shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. This is a sum of good government and the necessity to close the circle of our facilities. But aside, somebody should read this now. About to enter, fellow citizens, on the exercises of duties which comprehend everything dear and valuable to you, it is proper you should understand what I deem the essential principle of this government, and consequently, those who ought to shape its administration. I will compress them into the narrowest compass they will bear, stating the general principle, but all its limitations, equal and exact justice for all men, of whatever state or persuasion, religion or political, peace, commerce, honest friendship with all nations, entangled alliances with none, the support of state government in all their rights as the most competent administrators for our domestic concerns and the surest bulwarks against anti-republican tendencies, the preservation of a general government to its whole constitutional vigor as a sheer anchor over peace at home and safety abroad, a jealous care of the right of elections by the people, a mild and safe corrective of abuses which are lopped by the sword of revolution, where peaceably remedies are unprovided, absolute acquiescence in the decisions of the majority, the vital principle and immediate parent of despotism, a well-disciplined militia, our best resilience in peace, and for the moments of war, till regulars may relieve them. The supremacy of the civil over military authority, economy in the public expense, that labor may be lightly burthened, the honest payment of our debts and sacred preservation of the public faith, the encouragement of agriculture and of commerce and its handmaid, the diffusion of information and arraignment of all abuses at the bar of public reason, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and freedom of the person under the protection of habeas corpus, and trial by juries impartially selected. These principles form the bright constellation which has gone before us and guided our steps through an age of revolution and reformation. The wisdom of our sages and blood of our heroes have been devoted to their attainment. They should be the creed of our political faith, the text of civic instruction, the touchstone by which we try the services of those we trust. And should we wander from them in moments of alarm, let us hasten to retrace our steps and regain the road which alone leads to peace, liberty, and safety. I repair then, fellow citizens, to the post you have assigned me, with experience enough in subordinate stations to know the difficulties of this, the greatest of all. I have learnt to expect that it will rarely fall into the lot of imperfect men to retire from this station with the reputation and favor which bring him into it, without pretensions to that high confidence you repose in our first and greatest revolutionary character, whose preeminent services have entitled him to the first place in his country's love and destined for him the fairest page in the volume of faithful history. I ask so much confidence only as I may give firmness and effect to the legal administration of your affairs. I shall often go wrong through the defective judgment. When right, I shall often be thought wrong by those whose positions will not come in a view of the whole ground. I ask your indulgences for my own errors, which will never be intentional, and your support against the errors of others who may condemn what would not have seen in all its parts. The approbation implied by your suffrage is a great consolation to me for the past, and my future solicitude will be to retain the good opinion of those who have bestowed it in the advance, to conciliate that of others by doing them all the good in my power, and to be instrumental to the happiness and freedom of all. Relying then on the patronage of your good will, I will advance with obedience to the work, ready to retire from it whenever you become sensible how much better choices it is in your power to make. And may the infinite power which rules the destinies in the universe lead our counsels to what is best and give them a favorable issue for your peace and prosperity. Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address. A little bit of classic stout after that. From JAFB Brewing. Very good. I know we lost some music, but I didn't want to kill it because I thought it was so good to listen to. So here's the music again provided by Soundstripe. Looks like we're still a good timeline. So now we're going to read Alexander Hamilton. This is much shorter, thankfully. How's my hair look now? Still looks like shit. Still looks like crap, sorry. All right, so this is again from this book, Our Nation's Archives, The History of the United States Documents by Eric Barnett J. Crosby. This is from Alexander Hamilton. So Jefferson's very eloquent inaugural address, and now this. Despite the unquestionable dynamic impact Thomas Jefferson had in shaping American ideals and crafting a vision for the new democratic nation, Jefferson was not universally admired. In his day, longtime political adversary Alexander Hamilton observed in an 1801 letter to James Bayard that Jefferson was crafty, a contemptible hypocrite, and overly concerned about his popularity. 200 years later, Jefferson's legacy remains clouded. While he penned the Declaration of Independence articulating man's right to liberty, Jefferson also owned slaves. Now, I will tell you in an aside that he 6 times, I think 4 in the House of Burgesses, all unsuccessful, 1 in the Northwest Ordinance, successful, and in the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, unsuccessful, to legally do away with slavery. He could not, if I have read my Jefferson correctly, he could not emancipate his slaves because he owed an incredible amount of money for building the University of Virginia in Monticello. And if they would have to have gone to market. He would have had to sold his slaves to market. He would not do that. So he continued to own his slaves till he died. All right, anyway. Before becoming president, he strongly supported a frugal budget, but as president, he oversaw the Louisiana Purchase and aggressive westward expansion, which he thought was unconstitutional, but did it anyway. I mean, it's 2 cents an acre. Who's not going to buy 2 cents an acre? All right, here is Alexander Hamilton. It is too late for me to become Jefferson's apologist, nor can I have any disposition to do it. I admit that his politics are turned with fanaticism, that he is too much in earnest in his democracy, and that he has been a mischievous enemy of the principal measure of our past administration, and that he is crafty and persevering in his objects, that he is not scrupulous about the means of success, nor very mindful of the truth, and that he is a contemptible hypocrite. But it is not true, as is alleged, that he is an enemy of the power of the executive, or that he is confounding the power in the House of Representatives. It is, in fact, which I have frequently mentioned, that while we were in the administration together, he was generally for a large construction of executive authority, and not backward to act upon it in cases which coincided with his views. Let it be added that in his theoretical ideas, he has considered as improper to the participations of the Senate in the executive authority. I have more than once made the reflection that viewing himself as the reversioner, he was so solicitous to come into possession of a good estate. Nor is it true that Jefferson is a zealot enough to do anything in pursuance of his principles, which will contravene his popularity or his interest. He is as likely as any man I know to temporize, to calculate what will be likely to promote his own reputation and advantage. And the probable result of such a temper is a preservation of systems, though originally opposed, which being once established, could not be overturned without danger to the person who did it. To my mind, a true estimate of Mr. J's character warrants the expectation of a temporizing rather than a violent system. Excuse me. That Jefferson has manifested a culpable predilection for France is certainly true, but I think it a question whether it did not proceed quite as much from his popularity among us or from sentiment, and in proportion as the popularity is diminished, his zeal will cool. Add to that, there is no fair reason to suppose him capable of being corrupted, which is a security that he will not go beyond certain limits. It is not at all improbable that under the change of circumstances, Jefferson's Gallicism has considerably abated. Gallicism would be his love of France. So, not the terrible hatred of Jefferson, at least that time around. Yet, was he a hypocrite? Sure, most of them were. They knew that they couldn't end slavery and create a new government on a big continent all at the same time, so they did it at different times. Which isn't right or wrong, it's just the way it was. So we have one more thing we're going to do. Let's check what kind of time we've got. Okay, we've got time. So this is a personal aside. Let's get down here to the Fourth Amendment. We're going to look at the Fourth Amendment. We're going to chat a little bit about violations of the Fourth Amendment. And then we're going to look at something written by James Otis, or maybe not the whole thing written by James Otis, but something written by James Otis about writs of assistance. So here is the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secured in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. So a strict reading of the Fourth Amendment means that you need a warrant to search me unless you have probable cause. In other words, you think or you have enough evidence that maybe I have stole something, or that maybe I beat somebody up, or that maybe I did whatever. The problem with some of the things going on now, and it starts with the Patriot Act in 2011, is it allows for mass surveillance. Well, mass surveillance is a blanket warrant, and blanket warrants are writs of assistance. The Fourth Amendment does away with writs of assistance. Warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation and describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Well, security cameras. Now, if you're an individual and you have a security camera, you have every right to that. That's protecting your private property. Okay? You have every right to do that. Governments, however, do not have, according to the Fourth Amendment, in my opinion, the right to put up surveillance cameras or flock cameras, or whatever you want to call them, up on street corners or up in the town or up wherever, because they do not have probable cause. They're assuming guilt instead of assuming innocence, which is not how we were founded. And let's go even further. Section 702 of the FISA thing that they're trying to pass. In my opinion, FISA needs to go away. The whole court is unconstitutional, and maybe that's just me. But the Section 702 specifically allows for mass surveillance of American citizens. No, it's a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. This all goes to the building of data centers. Okay, you don't need a giant data center for AI to ask AI to write you a reinterpretation of the Fourth Amendment, or to make a caricature of me, or to do whatever, or to write even my code. You don't need huge data centers in every town. Um, the only thing they can be is for surveillance, especially since they won't tell anybody what they're for. So they got to be for surveillance. And I hate to say this, but I think it's true. JAFB Brewing, very good. Notice it's in my stout glass, right? It's in the right kind of glass. I'm gonna have some more since I'm yammering here. So I do believe that I think it's a good idea that they put a moratorium on data centers till A, they can find out what they're specifically for. So whoever's building them needs to be transparent. B, that they are self-sufficient, that they use their own power and their own water, and they're not using my power and water or somebody else's power and water. And so I end up having my rates raised to pay for their use. So no, okay. There's enough subsidies going to corporations that should be done away with. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, if they are for mass surveillance, then they are a violation of the Fourth Amendment. They should not be built until we're being told what they're being built for. My concern, and I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist, is digital currency, which I cannot stand. Look, I understand the convenience of a credit card. I understand the convenience of digital currency. I get it. But I don't like it for one reason and one reason only. It can be completely controlled by somebody other than you. And your money is supposed to be your money. The foundation of a democratic society is private property. And I'm pontificating, and I don't normally do this. But anyway, one more thing. So private property, right? You own your land. You own your home. You own your car. You own your books. You own your records. You own your art. Um, you own your furniture. There are two problems uh, currently. The one is corporations trying to make everything subscription services. Why do they want everything subscription services? Because you don't own it. You don't own that music. You don't own your ebooks. You don't own your streaming services. You don't own your car if you're leasing it. You don't own, and to be honest, you don't. My house is paid off, and to be honest, I don't own it. Still paying property tax on it. I understand that property taxes have been deemed to be used for schools and emergency services and things like that. I think you can come up with another way. And I don't believe when our governor says, well, you're going to have a 15 to 20% sales tax, he's full of shit to do that. And hey, there used to be something called fee for services. So build it into health insurance. So if I need an emergency vehicle, charge the insurance company and have them, I don't know, split the cost with me or whatever. And there, you don't need property tax. So anyway, I'm sorry that I'm pontificating. All right. And we're out of time. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Love you all. We did um, Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address, Henry Lee's First in the Hearts of Countrymen, and Contemptible Hypocrite by Alexander Hamilton. We talked about the Fourth Amendment and all the craziness around it. And next time, a special on the Declaration of Independence. All right, have a great one. Love you all. See you soon. Take care. Have a good day.